I was 35 years old when I had it all. A thriving career as a software engineer, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and what I thought was a loving marriage with Stephanie for 8 wonderful years. Then came the day that changed everything. The doctor looked at me with solemn eyes and said I had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 6 to 12 months to live. Devastated, I went home early, seeking comfort in my wife's arms. Instead, I found her in our bed with my friend Dave. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Hit that like button and subscribe for the full story of how I took back control when I had nothing left to lose. My life before diagnosis was everything I had ever worked for. I had climbed the corporate ladder at one of the biggest tech companies in Seattle, earning recognition for developing innovative software solutions that saved the company millions. My colleagues respected me, my bosses valued me, and my future seemed secure with substantial stock options and a generous retirement plan. I met Stephanie at my college roommate's wedding 10 years ago. She was the maid of honor, a stunning woman with captivating green eyes and a laugh that made everyone around her smile. We connected immediately over our shared love of hiking and classic rock music. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown where we talked until the owner politely asked us to leave because they were closing. 3 months later, I knew she was the one. Our wedding was intimate but beautiful. Just close friends and family at a vineyard outside the city. We bought our first home together a year later, a charming 4-bedroom house with a backyard perfect for the children we planned to have. For years, our marriage seemed picture perfect. We hosted dinner parties, took vacations to exotic locations, and built what I thought was an unshakable foundation of trust and love. The plan was always to start a family once we felt financially secure. We both wanted children, or so I thought. Last year, when I suggested we should finally try Stephanie, suddenly had reasons to wait. Her career was taking off. The timing was not right. She wanted to travel more before being tied down. I respected her choices and never pushed, believing we had all the time in the world. Looking back, I see the subtle changes that started months before my diagnosis. Stephanie began working later at the office, attending more weekend conferences, and growing increasingly protective of her phone. At the time, I attributed it to work stress and gave her space. I trusted her completely. We had built a comfortable financial life together. Joint bank accounts, a mortgage, nearly half paid off retirement accounts, and various investments we had made together. Everything was transparent between us. I managed most of our finances since I had a background in it, but Stephanie always had full access and knowledge of our accounts. That transparency was something I took pride in. We were partners in everything. The first signs that something was wrong with my health were easy to dismiss. I lost a few pounds without trying, but I figured it was from skipping lunch during busy workdays. The fatigue I attributed to long hours at the office. Even when the abdominal pain started, I took over-the-counter medication and pushed through. It was not until I noticed a yellowing of my eyes one morning that I finally made an appointment with my doctor. The initial visit led to blood tests, which led to more tests, and finally a CT scan that revealed a mass on my pancreas. I still remember sitting in the waiting room before meeting with the oncologist, scrolling through photos on my phone of Stephanie and me on our last anniversary trip to Hawaii, thinking about all the places we still wanted to visit together. Dr. Marshall did not sugarcoat it. The cancer had already spread to my liver. Stage 4. Pancreatic cancer has one of the lowest survival rates of all cancers. 6 to 12 months was his best estimate. I could try aggressive chemotherapy to possibly extend that time, but there was no talking about remission or 5-year survival rates. Just months. Months to say goodbye to everyone and everything I loved. I sat in my car for almost an hour after that appointment, alternating between sobbing uncontrollably and sitting in numb silence. All I wanted was Stephanie. I needed to tell her, to hold her, to make plans for whatever time I had left. It was just past noon, and I knew she would normally be at work, but I called anyway. No answer. I texted that I was coming home early and needed to talk about something important. No response. The drive home was a blur. How do you tell the love of your life that you are dying? Would we travel with my remaining time? Should we finally try for that baby, even knowing I would not live to see my child grow up? By the time I pulled into our driveway, I noticed something odd. Stephanie's car was there, along with another vehicle I recognized as Dave's, one of my friends from college who had recently moved to the area. I thought nothing of it at first. Maybe she was working from home, and Dave had stopped by for lunch. I was actually relieved not to have to make the call to ask her to come home. As I entered the house, I noticed 2 wine glasses on the kitchen counter. I called out, but no one answered. That was when I heard noises coming from upstairs from our bedroom. As I climbed the stairs, the sounds became unmistakable. My body moved automatically, while my mind screamed in denial. The bedroom door was partially open. I saw them before they saw me. My wife and my friend in our bed, our marriage bed, so engrossed in each other, they did not hear me until I was standing in the doorway. The look on Stephanie's face was not just surprise, but annoyance at the interruption. Dave scrambled to cover himself, mumbling something about it not being what it looked like, the most cliched line possible for being caught in the most cliched betrayal. I did not yell. I did not cry. I simply turned and walked out. Behind me, Stephanie called my name, but I kept walking. I got in my car and drove with no destination in mind. 2 life-shattering events in the span of hours. Cancer was going to take my future. My wife and friend had just destroyed my past. I checked into a hotel downtown, a place where Stephanie and I had never stayed, wanting nothing familiar around me. My phone would not stop buzzing with texts and calls from her. I finally looked at one message. "Where are you? We need to talk about what you saw." It was all a mistake. Not once did she ask why I had come home early. Not once did she ask if everything was okay. She was only concerned about being caught. I turned my phone off and lay on the hotel bed staring at the ceiling. I had just been handed a death sentence, and now the person I trusted most had betrayed me in the worst possible way. For a brief moment, I considered just ending it all right then. What was the point of fighting cancer when I had nothing left to live for? But as the initial shock began to wear off, something else took its place. A cold, calculated anger I had never felt before. I was dying, yes, but I was not dead yet, and I would not let Stephanie and Dave get away with this. If I had limited time left, I would use it to ensure justice was served. The next morning, I turned my phone back on to dozens of missed calls and messages. Stephanie had gone from apologetic to angry that I had not come home, accusing me of overreacting. Not once had she asked about the important thing I had texted I needed to tell her. It confirmed everything I needed to know about our marriage. I contacted a private investigator recommended by a lawyer friend. I told him my situation and what I needed. If this affair had been going on long enough for them to be so comfortable in my home, there would be evidence. The PI agreed to work quickly, understanding my time constraints, both legal and medical. Within a week, he delivered his report, and it was worse than I imagined. The affair had been going on for nearly 2 years, almost a quarter of our marriage. There were hotel receipts, photos of them together at restaurants in nearby cities, even a weekend trip to Vancouver they had taken while I was at a conference in Chicago. The timestamps on some photos matched exactly with texts from Stephanie telling me she was working late or out with girlfriends, but the financial discoveries hit me hardest. The PI had managed to access our bank records, showing Stephanie had been siphoning money from our joint account into a private one for months. Small amounts that I had not noticed among our regular transactions. Based on the withdrawal patterns, she had taken nearly $30,000 of our shared money. The final blow came when the PI showed me evidence of plane tickets. Stephanie and Dave had booked a trip to Bali scheduled for next month, paid for with our joint credit card. They were planning a romantic getaway with my money, while I was still sleeping next to her every night, unaware of my diagnosis or their betrayal. The PI had also discovered who knew about the affair. Several of our mutual friends had seen them together but stayed silent. Dave's wife Amanda appeared to be completely in the dark, just as I had been. The thought of her going about her life trusting her husband while he betrayed her made me sick. She deserved to know the truth as much as I had deserved it. Armed with this knowledge, I scheduled meetings with both a divorce attorney and a financial advisor. The attorney, Lydia Cohen, specialized in high-conflict divorces and had seen cases like mine before. She listened intently as I laid out the evidence and explained my terminal diagnosis. "Trust me, the timing of your diagnosis alongside discovering the affair actually works in your legal favor," Lydia explained. "The courts take a very dim view of spousal abandonment during serious illness, not to mention the financial infidelity." Together, we devised a strategy. I would document everything, secure as many assets as legally possible, and prepare for a swift divorce filing. Given my prognosis, the courts would likely expedite the proceedings. The financial advisor helped me untangle our finances. I could not legally empty our joint accounts, but I could protect my personal assets and future income. I changed the beneficiaries on my life insurance and retirement accounts, from Stephanie to my parents and younger sister. I updated my will with a new estate lawyer, ensuring Stephanie would receive nothing after my death. For additional evidence, I set up hidden cameras in our home, placing them strategically in the living room and kitchen, nowhere that would violate reasonable privacy but where conversations could be captured. I needed to document any admissions from Stephanie about the affair or the missing money. While planning my legal strategy, I also consulted with another oncologist for a second opinion on my diagnosis. The prognosis remained grim, but this doctor suggested a more aggressive treatment protocol that might extend my life by a few months. I scheduled the treatments to begin after I had dealt with Stephanie. I needed a clear head for what was coming next. Before confronting Stephanie, I meticulously secured all my personal possessions of value. Family heirlooms, important documents, and irreplaceable mementos were moved to a safe deposit box. I discreetly transferred my portion of our joint savings to a new account, in my name only leaving her share untouched to avoid legal complications. I documented every financial transaction of our marriage for the past 5 years, highlighting the irregularities that had begun when her affair started. The evidence was damning. Stephanie had not just betrayed me emotionally, but had been systematically preparing to leave me stockpiling resources like a squirrel before winter. I spoke with human resources at my company, explaining both my medical situation and impending divorce. They were surprisingly supportive, offering extended medical leave and connecting me with the company's legal resources for additional guidance on protecting my stock options and benefits. They also assured me my medical insurance would remain intact throughout my treatments. With everything in place, I planned the confrontation carefully. I invited our closest friends and family to a dinner party at an upscale restaurant, including Dave's unsuspecting wife. I told Stephanie it was to announce some important news, letting her assume I was ready to reconcile. She seemed relieved, spending hours choosing the perfect outfit, probably believing she had gotten away with everything. 20 people gathered in the private dining room I had reserved. Stephanie sat beside me, playing the role of devoted wife, her hand occasionally squeezing mine in what I once would have interpreted as affection, but now recognized as a warning to keep quiet about what I had seen. After the main course, I stood to make my announcement. Everyone grew quiet wine glasses, paused midway to lips, expectant smiles all around. Stephanie looked up at me, her expression a mask of adoration for our audience. "I have 2 announcements to make today." I began, my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. First, I was recently diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors have given me 6 to 12 months. Gasps filled the room. Stephanie's hand flew to her mouth in what appeared to be shock, but I caught the calculation in her eyes. She had not known, and now she was rapidly processing how this changed her plans. The second announcement, I continued before anyone could speak, is that on the day I received this diagnosis, I came home to find my wife in bed with someone in this room. The silence turned deafening. I connected my phone to the restaurant's audiovisual system and played a compilation of evidence the PI had gathered, carefully edited to protect Amanda's dignity while making the truth undeniable. Photos of Stephanie and Dave together, time-stamped text messages contradicting her alibi's, bank statements showing the money she had taken. Stephanie's face drained of color. Dave stared at his plate, unable to meet his wife's devastated gaze. One by one, our friends' expressions changed from confusion to horror, to disgust, not at my public revelation, but at the betrayal it exposed. As a final touch, I played the most recent video from my hidden cameras showing Stephanie on the phone with Dave the previous night, laughing about how I suspected nothing about the money she had taken, discussing their upcoming trip, and dismissing my earlier discovery of their affair as a complication they could manage. When the evidence finished playing, I turned to Stephanie. For 2 years, you have lied to my face every day. You have stolen from me. You plan to leave me without ever having the courage to tell me the truth. And when I received the worst news of my life, instead of having my wife to turn to, I found her betraying me in the most painful way possible. Stephanie tried to speak, tears streaming down her face. But they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of humiliation and thwarted plans. Dave, your wife deserves better than you, I said, looking at Amanda, whose friends were already gathering around her supportively. Then I removed a manila envelope from my jacket and handed it to Stephanie. Inside were divorce papers already prepared by my attorney. In light of the circumstances, I think you'll find the terms more than fair, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. You get to keep everything you stole and nothing more. The dinner party dissolved into chaos. Amanda's friends escorted her out, already promising support through her own impending divorce. Our mutual friends approached me with apologies and offers of help, especially those who admitted they had suspected something but said nothing. Stephanie remained frozen in her seat, divorce papers in hand, as her carefully constructed world collapsed around her. I left the restaurant alone, but received dozens of messages afterward. Not a single person sided with Stephanie or Dave. The betrayal of someone with a terminal diagnosis was beyond what even the most forgiving could excuse. Within days, Stephanie had been cut off by most of our social circle. She moved out of our house without argument, knowing the evidence against her would make fighting the divorce terms futile. The legal process moved swiftly, as Lydia had promised. The judge, upon reviewing the evidence of the affair alongside my medical records, granted expedited proceedings. Stephanie attempted to claim she deserved half of everything despite the affair, but her documented financial infidelity undermined her position completely. Dave faced his own consequences. Amanda filed for divorce immediately, and his reputation in our professional circle was destroyed. Several clients dropped him from their projects, and he eventually relocated to another state, leaving Stephanie behind to deal with the mess they had created. With the divorce finalized in record time, I turned my attention to fighting the cancer that was steadily consuming me from within. I began an aggressive treatment protocol at a leading oncology center, enduring rounds of chemotherapy that left me physically drained but mentally determined. The support I received was overwhelming. Friends I had not spoken to in years reached out after hearing about my situation. Colleagues organized meal deliveries for days when I was too weak to cook. My parents temporarily moved closer to help care for me during the worst periods of treatment. Meanwhile, Stephanie's life unraveled in ways I had not even planned. She lost her job after calling in sick, too often spending days in bed, depressed about the social rejection she faced. The money she had siphoned from our accounts quickly dwindled as she struggled to secure new employment with references unwilling to vouch for her character. The lavish lifestyle she had enjoyed during our marriage became a distant memory. Dave, I heard, was similarly struggling. His wife had received a generous settlement in their divorce after his infidelity came to light, forcing him to downsize significantly. His attempts to reconcile with Stephanie had failed their relationship, unable to survive outside the exciting context of forbidden affair. 3 months into my treatment, something unexpected happened. My oncologist called with results from my latest scans. The tumors were shrinking, responding to the treatment far better than anyone had predicted. While he cautioned against too much optimism, he admitted he had never seen such a response in stage 4 pancreatic cancer before. The strength I found during this period surprised even me. I established a support foundation for cancer patients going through divorce or relationship betrayal during their illness, creating meaning from my experience. The foundation quickly gained attention, and donations poured in, allowing us to provide both emotional support and practical assistance to those facing similar circumstances. I reconnected with family members I had grown distant from during my marriage. My younger sister Julia, who had never warmed to Stephanie, moved in temporarily to help care for me after particularly difficult treatments. Our late-night conversations healed old wounds between us that I had not even realized were still open. New relationships entered my life too. Not romantic ones, as I was in no position for that, but deep friendships with people who knew my story and accepted my uncertain future. Brandon, another patient I met during treatment, became like a brother to me. Maria, a grief counselor who volunteered at the hospital, helped me process both my diagnosis and the end of my marriage without bitterness consuming me. 6 months after my diagnosis, when I should have been approaching the end according to initial estimates, I received shocking news. My cancer was in partial remission. Not cured, the doctor emphasized, but retreating in a way that might extend my life significantly. Years potentially, rather than months. It was after receiving this news that Stephanie reached out again. She asked to meet, claiming she wanted closure. Against the advice of friends, I agreed to see her one last time at a neutral coffee shop. She looked smaller somehow, her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a plain sweater. The confident, radiant woman I had married now appeared diminished with dark circles under her eyes and a nervous demeanor. "I heard about your remission," she said after an awkward silence. "I am really happy for you, Juan." I nodded, waiting for her real purpose in meeting. "I have been doing a lot of thinking," she continued, staring into her untouched coffee. "What I did to you was unforgivable. I want you to know how sorry I am." I studied her face, searching for sincerity. Perhaps it was there, buried under layers of regret that seemed more about consequences than actions. "I appreciate that," I said finally. "But I did not come here for an apology." "Then why did you agree to meet?" she asked. "Because I needed to see that I truly have moved on," I explained. "I carried so much anger after discovering your betrayal. It almost consumed me. But sitting here now, I feel nothing but peace." Her eyes welled with tears. "Do you think you could ever forgive me?" "Maybe someday we could." I stopped her with a gentle hand gesture. "Stephanie, I forgive you. Not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying hatred is exhausting, and I need my strength for healing. But there is no future for us. What we had died long before my diagnosis." She nodded slowly, finally understanding that some bridges cannot be rebuilt once burned. We parted without drama, two people who had once shared everything now moving in entirely different directions. In the months that followed, my health continued to improve against all odds. The doctors used terms like exceptional responder and medical anomaly. While they made no promises about a cure, each scan showed further improvement, buying me more time than anyone had dared hope for. I used that time to rebuild my life on my own terms. I sold the house full of painful memories and bought a small cabin near a lake, a place of peace where I could write and reflect. The foundation I started grew, helping dozens of people navigate the complicated intersection of serious illness and relationship trauma. Looking back on everything now, I realized that those two devastating blows, the cancer diagnosis and Stephanie's betrayal, forced me to confront what truly matters in life. Before, I had been sleepwalking through existence, accumulating possessions and achievements without questioning whether they brought genuine fulfillment. The hardest lesson was learning that sometimes people we trust completely can betray us in unimaginable ways. But the most valuable lesson was discovering that even in our darkest moments, we have more strength than we know. My life now is not the one I had planned, but in many ways it is richer, more authentic, and filled with deeper connections than before. I do not know how much time I have left. The cancer could return tomorrow, or I might have years ahead. But I no longer fear death the way I once did. When it comes, it will find me living fully in each moment, grateful for every sunrise I witness and every hand I help along the way. What would you do if faced with both a terminal diagnosis and a devastating betrayal on the same day? Would you seek revenge, or would you find another path forward? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and transformation. Thank you for listening, and remember, even in our darkest hours, we always have choices about how we respond. The greatest revenge is not destruction, but creation of a life well lived, however long or short that life might be.